this rap-ish. I ain't even broke a sweat, homie, this practice. Pondering my next move, staring at my track list. Hope I ain't missing my window. Praying like a Baptist, Seattle's own. Tired of this Game of Thrones. They made a list of the best rappers, and guess who wasn't on? While the disrespect continues, I'm steady packing these venues. Guess if you ain't at the table, you on the menu. And I'm that spitter, baby. They don't want you to see, but everybody's out to Capitol Hill's rocking with me. Boys smoke the trays and ponder getting their life together. I'm comfortable with my role, so I'm like, whatever. Me? I ain't got a job, but I work hard. And you don't work hard, but you got a job. The irony is I'm judged while you feel the applause. I'm slept on, that's why I had to set this alarm. My dudes is armed, I'm armed with this arm charm. Body banging like she got that cream from Barry Bonds. Yeah.
I did it for the city, I did it for the love, I did it for the people, I did it for us.
That Dre season is here, a real hitter with a mic, I'm everything that they fear. With that hood ain't the same, I was all on their ass, I'm level-headed. So yo, my dudes love when I spaz, and I'm so over Seattle's passive-aggressive attitude. They don't call you back, what they really saying is F you. While I'm from the same place, I move at a different pace. I prefer if you just said it to my face, damn, I did it.
I did it for the city, I did it for the love, I did it for the people, I did it
I hate
for
these
us.
average dudes with they average spit, writing average rhymes, knocking average chicks. The closer I get, I can feel the people starting to shift. I'm loyal to a fault, and everybody can't come with. Rap's a rich man's game, I'm only playing with change. They bang models and singers, I'm knocking my own flame, I'm different. The crowd, I move with the chosen few. Black thoughts, I could be the front man for the roots. No diamonds and gold, I'm on my sticks and stones. If we can see your panty line, you should have on a thong. My team is strong, through this fire we forged a bond. And they already know what it is when I get on. To the hearse, party like it's December 31st. When I'm on my deathbed, I probably cracking my nurse. You ain't got the bars to compete. I'm a verbal athlete, deflating these boys so they say that I cheat. Damn, I did it.
I did it for the city, I did it for the love, I did it for the people, I did it for us.
Yeah. I should probably start by apologizing for the long wait, man. You know, I know I be tripping. But I'm not just a rapper, I'm an artist. And, you know, my creative process is a little bit different than most. Nonetheless, I want to welcome everybody out to the Dre's Experience. I got TCF in the building. My whole camp's here with me. I got the band in here laying this cool-ass vibe. And I'm Seattle's own. Let's get into it.
Grand Rising and good morning to you over here rocking it out already this morning in the Black Media Matters studios. Welcome to the Morning Update Show. I'm your co-host, Trey Holiday, and we've got a great show lined up for you as always, y'all, today. Always a great day when I'm in the Black Media Matters studios with my buddy, co-host with the most, Big O. What up, Big O? Happy Wednesday.
Trey Holiday.
Hey,
What's
how
up?
are you?
Happy Wednesday. Oh, for me, it's Thursday Eve, right?
Thursday Eve for you. Yes. You won't let us forget it ever. Any week. We know.
No,
I love it.
It's all good. And, you know, I don't know what the weather is going to do for the rest of the day, but, you know, I'm trying to hit the ballpark later on.
Nice.
You know what I'm saying?
Nice.
Yeah, I can't get enough of the M's. I'm trying to
Absolutely.
take all the kids. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, man. You know, this week is just moving along. Oh, before we get going today, I got a really nice email from the people over at Public Health, Seattle King County. You know, we were talking about their COVID response yesterday, as well as the Seattle Fire Department. And, you know, they was watching as they sent a real nice message over.
That's good to hear. You know, I mean, at the end of the day, we're just keeping it real with our audience. And I love that they were watching and that the message resonated with them. Shout out to them for the hard effort they put into the COVID response.
Yeah, man, we got a great show lined up here today. Tiffani, McCoy, and Ty Reed are in the building. These guys have been making a lot of noise. This is the House Our Neighbors, excuse me, I-135, Initiative 135, going on to the ballot. It's all about social housing
Yeah. We've been talking about the diversity of housing. I'm excited that they're here today so we can dive into it with them. I think a lot of folks don't still know what it is yet. So it'd be great to really set that foundation.
Yeah, I mean, on on Twitter, I've just been kind of saying, is this housing, for the people, by the people? That might be something we need. That's town business, but we're gonna dive into it, man. On all aspects of that. And so we've left a lot of space and grace in the show today for conversation. So our headlines are a bit short, but in that case, I'll jump right into it. Excuse me. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Morning Update Show. I want to remind you that right now is a perfect time for you to tag and share the stream. We're talking about social housing today. Definitely tag and share the stream with people that appreciate culturally relevant news and information emanating from right here in the Emerald City. Want to give a big shout out to our partners, KBCS 91.3 over at Bellevue College, as well as the South Seattle Emerald. You can listen to the Morning Update Show and all of our shows anywhere that you listen to your favorite podcast. Right now, we're putting SoundCloud in the links, but you can also go to Google, Spotify, iTunes. All you have to do is search Converge Media Network. Time in the show right now. We continue to keep this message going. HereForUsWA.org, HereForUsWA.org, culturally curated information for those in our community, especially those vaccine hesitant. Man, this vaccine and mass news, it's been a lot, going on around it. So a good resource is kind of tailored for our people.
Yeah, I mean, and we keep talking about it's so necessary. Ultimately, there's a lot of people out here that are, following these trends. We're seeing, mask on, mask off, now no mask on planes. There's a lot of people that, when we have these changing of the times, sometimes it can get confusing. And so, check out hereforuswa.org, make sure that you're up to date on the latest info.
All right, Trey Holiday, a good thing is getting ready to come to an end. Today is the last day for Culture 2022 project grants. If you wait until the last day to get this in, then it's probably I'm hoping and wishing for all the best. Yeah. For Culture, and for their credit, man, this thing has been open for at least like 6 weeks or something. It's been open for a long time. Today is the last day for people to get that in. And again, kudos to For Culture for literally doing it for the culture.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, project grants around arts preservation and heritage. The application closes at 5 p.m. today. So, I mean, you still have an opportunity to get that application in on this very last day. Make sure you submit your application by 5 p.m.
All right. And then also, this is how to deal. We want to keep this going here. This is the summer learning request for investment. This is Department of Education and Early Learning. And man, they got $1 million, Trey Holiday, in grants up to $75,000 for community organizations that have programs to really bolster children around education. So whether it's young kids or preparing teenagers for college prep, everything else. Best thing is we always talk about investment in prevention and investment in education. And this is 2 for 1.
You're absolutely right. And I think there's something to be said about, programs that offer opportunities for high school students in particular to retrieve their credits. This is really important because that can be a life changer for a high school student in terms of, graduating on time or not. So shout out to all of the institutions and organizations out there that are prepping themselves for this request for investment. Right now is the time to go after it and make sure that you get the much needed funds to, bolster your programs around education during the summer months.
Yeah, it's a whole meal ticket out there, man. You know what I'm saying? All right. So last night, I think you're going to have to come to one of these Truth with Proof live shows because, man, I got smoked turkey legs and banana pudding. Look, Salvatore out over there laughing. He saved his banana pudding till this morning. Man, what a great and entertaining show last night. But who else was on was Willie Seals from the ACE Academy. Mm-hmm. And it turns out the ACE Academy, they have their gala on May 21st at Bell Harbor, Salmon. We'll put the link there in the comments. And they're looking to raise $300,000, right? And so part of that's just through gala tickets, but of course through donations and everything else. Well, Willie Seals was sitting here yesterday with proof. And we had a little present for Willie and Ace Academy.
Opportunity to celebrate Black excellence and just be around just some good folks. And it's also a fundraising opportunity for us as well. A big goal for us is to raise $300,000 to be able to provide that support for our operations and for the Black males that we are serving within this community, because it's absolutely needed.
It definitely is absolutely needed. Now, have to say, I really don't see a lot of us always in one area or in one space. But just to let you know, I do notice when people are doing things the right way, not even the right way, they way to make an impact. Because sometimes it ain't my way or your way. It's just how we make an impact. And if we can make an impact, it's going to be better for all of us.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? And you already said you're going to have me in the blazer and all of that. But on the behalf of Converge Media, Big O, Treyana, all Saman, everybody that's here at the Truth with Proof show, we want to give you $250.
Oh, man. Appreciate that.
Oh, yeah. We got a check for you right
Thank
here.
you. Thank you, sir. Oh, man, that's awesome. Thank you.
2 tickets, however you want to put it. We want to go towards that $300,000 that you want to do because it's needed.
Oh, look at us being the givers. This is a beautiful thing. You know what? Here at Converge, we really believe in the work of our community, and it's beyond talk for us. So I love that we put some money where our mouth is. Oh, you know, we don't just talk the talk, we walk the walk. Man, shout out to everybody over at Ace Academy. It's an incredible effort, you know, really allowing youth to see themselves in these magnificent roles. Shout out to my brother Marcus over there, who's also with that effort. I gotta say, it's beautiful that we understood the need and we put some money in that pot. Man, that's what's up.
Yeah, no, for sure. And you know what I'm saying? May 21st, you have to check your calendar.
Yeah.
See if you're, I know you love galas and all those.
Here you go.
No, it's the truth. You know what I'm saying? You love galas, but also what we're going to do is, man, we're going to give away 2 pairs of tickets as well. And I think this would be really interesting for people who may have never been to a gala. You know what I'm saying? What's a new experience that we can give somebody? You know, this is going to be a night of Black excellence there at Bell Harbor on May 21st. Check your calendar out there. And I want you to email Besa and say why you and a guest want to attend the gala. You know what I'm saying? And ideally, like I said, we want people who've never been to a gala before, experience something new, to be able to go. That's BESA at whereweconverge.com. So email her and we'll give these 2 tickets out to the gala. And then if you want to go, Salman, you going? We're going to get you in a suit. Okay, so we'll buy another round of tickets for staff and everybody else that wants to attend. But we definitely want to uplift the work of Ace Academy.
Absolutely, we do. I mean, education is a big foundation for us here at Converge, and I am so glad and honored that we'll be able to be in attendance to support this fabulous effort over there at Ace Academy. Shout out to all y'all.
Yeah. Willie Seals is watching.
Great work. Oh, that's what I'm talking about.
Oh, yeah. You know what? So, by the way, Willie gave a swag bag and all kinds of stuff. I got all kinds of gear. I got to get a hat to match the shirt. So as soon as I get a hat, don't worry. I'm going to have my I Am Excellence shirt on here as well. Before we go to break and we go with our guests, kind of setting the framework here when we talk about housing in Seattle. And we talk about how much our beloved Central District here represented in our iconic interview wall has changed over the years. And a big part of it is that our community can no longer afford to live in their community.
Absolutely. I mean, we have been talking about this for many years now. I think many people saw it on the horizon. Shout out to all those who have been paving the way towards the understanding of not just the term gentrification, but it really is the changing of the tides in our neighborhood. We saw this with Weed and Seed. We saw that there was literal programs put in place to divest from the Central District to make it an area of opportunity for investment. And unfortunately, that opportunity opportunity missed a lot of Black families. And so I'm really excited, honestly. I got my Build Africa Town shirt on today because when we're talking about housing, I think about the need for community-centric housing, for it to be owned and operated by a community. The idea of social housing and the PDA being a major part of this, it's going to be really interesting to, again, set that foundation and put the tone in for people to understand it's necessary, yo.
Yeah, a lot of people might not realize if you look at House Bill 1918, I think that was 2019, it passed both houses of the legislature unanimously, and Governor Inslee signed it in July of, I think it was 2019. But in House Bill 1918, it talked about the legacy Black community of Seattle and the Central District, basically government working against it. It was systemic, all these other things, either by lack of resources or zoning or this. So government has had an active role, right? It isn't like government has just stood by. Government has had an active role over the years in what happened in the Central District. And like I said, House Bill 1918, and there was no legislator in the state of Washington who disagreed. Have passed both houses unanimously, and it said their government's role in what happened to Seattle's legacy Black community in the Central District. I only bring that up because if government played a role in dismantling our community, very well might be time for government to play a role, in rebuilding the community, and not in some, here's grant here, here's there, and maybe in creating a robust infrastructure to do so.
I love that you say that. And something that I really want to point out here is House Bill 1918 passed in that, with those resounding numbers, because it wasn't tied to any form of solution. And so, just like you talked about, now Supreme Court Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson, some of the Republicans saying, well, this doesn't really have a change of power, so I can go ahead and do this. I think it's really the same with House Bill 1918. It was, in essence, it was just showcasing that this history was true. And so people were like, yeah, I mean, I can agree with that's true. But now what we have to do is exactly what you talk about, crafting real solutions around the repairing of the harms that House Bill 1918 laid out before all of us. The fact that we can accept that that's a part of our history. Now, what are we going to do about it?
Right. I think the idea is as well, and I agree with you. I think the idea is, and this is sometimes what happens in our community. We always talk about that foot on the gas. You know what I'm saying? That is a crack in the door, because unanimously everybody in the state agrees on historically what happened. And so now we don't have to go back and argue about, the government do this, was this. This is in our law now in the state of Washington. So now we have a baseline, right? And so now from that baseline is, like you said, man, what are we really going to do to repair harm? What are we really going to do? Because one thing, sure, about, we talk about the Seattle process and the Seattle method and the Seattle this and that. One thing for sure, especially when it comes to Black folk, what Seattle's good for is Seattle's good for having a discussion. We'll talk about everything. But somehow people here think that a discussion is fixing the problem. Imagine going to the emergency room and you get a consultation for a broken arm, and they've consulted you. Oh, no, I consulted them, looked at it. Arm's definitely broken. Who's next?
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? So Seattle is really good at discussing an issue, and we'll have a forum. All these people, they call me, they want to be on panel. Let me tell you this. I can't go on no rant because we got some hot guests in the building today ready to talk about this hot topic that's right here. You know what I'm saying? But I want to speak again to all you DEI people out there, right? And I want to hip you guys to something that you might not be aware of. A lot of people in companies and organizations that you're a part of, they're systemic racist. Now, it's institutional. You know what I'm saying? They might not even be realizing, to be honest with you, what exactly they're doing, when they look at a name on an application and, you know what I'm saying, just deny it without reading through it. When they advertise for jobs, but they don't advertise in no Black media, and so people be hitting me and they want me to go and be on panels to talk to these institutionalized people who've been holding black people back for 20, 30 years on the job. And what they don't understand is this, is me being on any panel, one, is a stamp of approval of the panel. But two, this gives these same systemic people, they're able to check a box. Well, to be honest with you, I sat on a panel with Omari and Converge Media and this and that. And then they co-opt the vernacular. I believe that equity is important for everybody, but they don't change their actions. You see what I'm saying? And I think a lot of DEI people don't realize they setting themselves up for the fall. They recruiting all the black people to go be on panels and talk to white people who aren't going to change. You see what I'm saying? I'll be there for an hour all worked up and everything else. These guys are able to say, so they're able to walk away and say, well, man, we met with Omari and Trayana talked to us and this and that, and they're going to continue the same practice, right? And that's what you DEI people need to look at. You know what I'm saying? You very well might be giving your people who are the real problem a free pass by inviting us black folk to sit up there and give a sham panel legitimacy with a bunch of people who aren't going to change their actions. What you need to do is you need to guarantee the actions that are going to outcome first and then invite the black folk to come talk. You know what I'm saying?
Agreed 100%. Okay, just two things real quick. Seattle is quick to celebrate the concept. It is an empty concept. I mean, when you look at House Bill 1918, it sets the foundation, it does. But it's easy to accept that because there's really nothing tangible attached to it. This is what Seattle does, but it's also what Washington does. And I think it's what the nation does. We talk a lot about theory. We talk a lot about putting ideals out there and celebrating the concept of something. But as long as it doesn't amount in any real adjustment of power, then we're okay with it. When we start talking about real adjustments of power in terms of community-rooted solutions that are culturally responsive, we say these things, and I'll say them over and over again, because when we talk about culturally responsive approaches, we're literally talking about center the voices of the people that have been at the most affected margins of society. Now, another thing here, DEI is a cool concept. When I was in corporate America, it was just diversity and inclusion. It was just DI. They didn't even know nothing about equity. And the second day in a white corporate job, I was given the opportunity to lead DEI efforts. They didn't even know really who I was yet, but I was a black woman who already was outspoken. It was enough to check mark that box. However, it didn't result in more black people getting access to executive roles. Let's just be real here. At the end of the day, you can no longer do performative action that means that you're able to check mark boxes off and get black faces to puppeteer your agendas. At the end of the day, right now, what is required of you is to do exactly what Omari laid out here. You have to come with, this is what we want to learn from you for. These are the things that we are really in positive movement to change. These are the things that we already have laid out. Tell us what you think of that so that we can enact these things. We can't just do it because you came, you talked to us, we learned from you. That was so great. You were so poised. Oh my gosh, we just so appreciate your passion and your perspective. No more, y'all. No more.
I'll be on a panel, and next day, the same people who won't even look at an application from somebody named Tiffani, they'll have a Converge shirt on. Well, Omari was there, and I'm saying, hey man, stream the revolution, and they throwing out, you know what I'm saying? Not giving no people no opportunity. I think what DEI people need to do, one, man, y'all need to be looking for another career path because the winds in America is changing. You see what I'm saying? The winds of George Floyd is changing. And see, this is what happens, though. This is what happens when you just talk about it. Time for America to have a discussion about race. Time for us to discuss this and that. And remember, even when Mayor Durkin was like, okay, 100 million. And it was like, man, 100 million for 10 years. Well, that's gone. You know what I'm saying? But the whole time I'm like, money come and go. We need policies. Money will come and go. I mean, so this is what I'm saying, like the social housing represents a policy, right? We always get the lip service. Here's a little bag for all the Negroes to fight over, you know what I'm saying, or what's in the pot, and no policy changes. We need policy change. And so without policy changes, this is what I'm saying. And with a lot of this stuff with DEI, when them winds of George Floyd, when the last tailwinds blow out, all of a sudden, well, to be honest with you, Trey, we're downside. We're putting DEI in the HR, and we're gonna, send people a survey or something.
I mean, then it becomes about recruitment only.
Yeah, man, spend less time in trying to have somebody like me give legitimacy to a panel of people who ain't gonna make a difference in your company. And how about you just make a difference in your company? And we ain't even got to go and talk to them.
You know what? Agreed 1,000%. This is something that, I have been saying ever since I was in corporate America. And this is why I really fight for community rooted solutions in terms of policy and advocacy, because we do have the solutions on the ground. They need to be scaled up. And we see this in terms of performativism, because we talk about being in a progressive Seattle. We talk about this all the time. We know that has not meant a thing to Black families, a zero to Black families. And it's no longer going to be that
Let's be clear.
We just saw it even with cannabis equity, bro, at the state level.
Listen,
ridiculous.
That whole quote progressive, it works. It just don't work for Black folk.
Yeah.
It's working exactly like how it's supposed to. White people always come out on top on that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I mean, like you say, even no matter what, you know what I'm saying? It works. You know what I'm saying? We need to do a remix or something. You know what I'm saying? Figure out what's going to work for us. Hey, look, great discussion. We actually went a little bit long right there. We're going to take a break right now. When we come back, and this is the first time we haven't had photos, but when we come back, we got Tiffani McCoy coming in from How's Our Neighbors, the I-135 initiative. You're watching the Morning Update Show.
Hey there, it's Trey Holiday. And of course, Besa and I had to take a trip back to Market Street Shoes to grab some items. They always know what to show us. And let me tell you, we both spent quality time to be sure we collected some amazing additions to our wardrobes. They have some of the most unique bags, shoes, and accessories. I mean, the whole shebang. It's always a good time when I get to shop with my girl Besa. Make sure you go check out Market Street Shoes, y'all, and you too can walk out with some dope gear.
As a non-binary Black femme, a lot of my identity is rooted in body. Once the vaccine was introduced, it was really difficult to think in terms of safety as well as autonomy. As a Black American, the relationship with government is very complicated. It's hard to trust. A lot of these conspiracies are really impacting people making a decision, especially with Black folks, to be clear about what we're doing. I think it's just a well-rounded conversation to see what's best for us.
Baby, eating that roof, Chris. Short temper, so you know I'm kinda ruthless. Bad pass, roll one, time to elevate. Yeah, part-time smoker when I medicate. Big step, a couple hoes up in the Dino. Fly 'em out to Vegas, couple just in the casino. Mean if I had to earn it, others buy it, money burning. I work harder, I deserve it. You a groupie, you a bird. I'm a
All right, welcome back to the Morning Update Show. Joined now by Tiffani McCoy. How's Our Neighbors? Welcome to the Morning Update Show.
Thank you so much for having us.
Yeah, it was a pleasure to be here. And welcome to the Black Media Matters Studios. Got a bunch of things to talk to you about. But first of all, I'll let you introduce yourself to our audience. Tell them a little bit about yourself and what you do.
Yeah, so my name is Tiffani McCoy. I am the advocacy director of Real Change. Go find your local vendor. There's a new paper out this morning. And I'm also the campaign co-chair of How's Our Neighbors and Initiative 135, which I'm excited to talk to you about.
All right. Yeah. So Real Change, first of all, big shout out to Real Change. You know what I'm saying? I mean, on a lot of different levels, on the media level, on the support level, on the advocacy level. So if you see these guys out there with real change, you know, support them. And next time you guys do one of them fundraisers, like I want to be partnered with somebody. You know what I'm saying?
You want to do it?
Yes, I want to be partnered with somebody, you know, for real. You know, it's a good thing. All right. So tell us what House Our Neighbors is all about, and then what social housing is.
Definitely. So House Our Neighbors first formed about this time last year in opposition to Charter Amendment 29, which was ironically dubbed Compassion Seattle, which would have done a lot of lofty things that wasn't paid for, but most importantly, it would have concretized sweeps as a cornerstone of our homelessness policy. And we didn't see anyone that was coming out in opposition to it. There's a lot of good values, as you and Trey were talking about earlier, but no action on stopping this. So Ty and I got together and organized a group of folks that wanted to oppose this and used the C3 of Real Change to launch this effort to take that initiative down. And it was ultimately kicked off the ballot, thankfully. But we stayed together as a group and are focusing on a dual strategy. One is meeting material needs at the short term through our mutual aid work and supporting neighbors that are being swept by another administration. No surprise there. And we also wanted to focus on the long-term solutions for policy and structure change. So in August, we had a retreat. We said we want to look into social housing, and that's what we've been working on since then. And we just started gathering signatures for the initiative yesterday because we just can't keep waiting for solutions to come down and work groups, as you and Trey were talking about, in panels, and more reports to just go sit on the dust, go collect dust on the shelves. So we know that every year that we don't solve the affordability crisis at scale, more people are going to enter homelessness. That's an irrefutable fact. Rents go up, more people are pushed into homelessness, and more Black, brown, and low-income communities are pushed out of the city, having to travel 30 to 60 minutes each way into the city to serve those that are wealthy and more privileged, and then go home and try to, you know, spend time with their families and decompress. So we wanted to stake out boldly and put forward a solution that is wildly successful across the globe. And folks on the right and centrists are going to say, oh, this is a European model, it's too idealistic, but this is across Latin America, Singapore, this is also in Canada, in Britain, and in Europe, and actually in Montgomery County, Maryland as well. So that's what we're doing.
So how is social housing different than, say, a developer that might be doing like an affordable housing project?
Yeah, so the cornerstone is we do not currently have the tools necessary to meet our affordability needs at scale. We don't have any of those. We have very important interventions through nonprofit developers and current affordable housing mechanisms, and they are staving off part of the crisis and its harm reduction, and we need those mechanisms. But we don't have a plan whole scale specifically for like those that make 0 to 120% of the area median income. So we're talking about your baristas, your custodians, your nurses, school workers that aren't able to, you know, afford being in the city. So yeah, we wanted to make sure that housing was dedicated for them as a right, not as a commodity. So the biggest difference is that we aren't focused on like crisis reduction or interventions for folks that are unhoused to get back inside. We want to kind of cut off that pipeline into homelessness and cut off that pipeline into displacement by just creating housing as a human right and as a not as a commodity, and making sure that people aren't paying more than 30% of their income in rent into a building that's community controlled.
So this is what this would form is a PDA,
Mm-hmm.
and you guys would just basically be you'd be competing in the developer space, right? If you could talk a little bit like how actually the mechanics of it will work.
Definitely, yes. So this would create a public development authority. We call it the Seattle Social Housing Developer. This would be a publicly owned developer in perpetuity. So forever, this is publicly owned. As you and Trey discussed, it's community building the community, community housing the community. And yeah, it would be able to go out and acquire buildings and move those over into the social housing portfolio, and also build buildings in the future. And we have like really high environmental standards on those buildings as well, because we even though it's not fun to talk about, climate change is real. It's here. We know that it disproportionately affects those that are unhoused in Black and brown communities. We need to make sure that we're building housing that is like healthy for us to live in and breathe during fire season. So it would be able to compete with private developers, but also it would be able to just take public land that the city gave to it and develop that into social housing units to serve the public. So the other biggest thing is, and this is where we get wonky and I don't want to spend too much time on it, but the financing mechanisms that are available to current affordable housing models are extremely limiting and restrictive and onerous. And by creating a public developer for social housing outside of our current mechanisms, not only are we focusing on like that missing middle housing, but we also are making sure that profit isn't the driven motive, and also that the federal government isn't dictating who can be in the buildings.
Right. I do know one thing in the affordable housing space right now, a lot of it is dependent upon a lot of things with the government and tax credits. And it is a process to, to actually get in there. I mean, it's something that's there. Definitely thankful for affordable housing that's out there right now, serving people in our community. We talked about earlier, like the Liberty Bank building, it's affordable housing building, Jackson Heights. But there's a very big process to that. And, and what you're saying is that right now, a lot of those processes can also be prohibitive. And can hamstring a developer. And what you say is you want to be able to move away from that. How would you fund the PDA?
Yeah, so we set out in this first step of our like long campaign plan for House Our Neighbors to put together the structure and the vision for social housing, creating this public developer that is owned in the public for perpetuity, that focuses on permanently affordable rent, creates cross-class communities and renter leadership. Our governing board is going to be a renter majority governing board. So we couldn't give it funding because that is not only not the authority of a public developer, but also we just wanted to put forward the vision and the structure. Because as you and Trey rightly said, we don't have any more time to wait. And virtually every elected official, regardless of their political background, agrees that affordable housing is a really deep need. So now the onus will be on them in our campaign to get them to fund something that they say we desperately need. So, but from day one, the developer will be able to like seek out funding on its own. It will have that authority, but we'll be working on a progressive revenue source to fund it long term.
Right. And there's a lot of developers. You have the developer and then you have the financer. So, I mean, that's very commonplace. The developer doesn't need to have all the cash right there. The developer needs to have maybe the access to space to develop the vision, the plans. Then you go and find the financing for it. So, I mean, this sounds to me, right, that it's like a developer basically owned by the people, a PDA that's going to compete in the space of regular developers, but can also develop on city land, and you're going to create housing that is basically more affordable for everyday workers here in the city.
Yeah, I know it sounds like too good to be true, but they do it all over the globe, and we can do it here. There's no reason not to.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't sound. I mean, yeah, it just. Is anybody against this? Because like I'm just thinking about it because the idea of it, I'm just trying to figure it out. Like, man, okay, well, who would really be against this? So is there anybody who's against this?
We haven't had any opposition outwardly yet. I imagine there are discussions happening and behind closed doors of private developers and folks that see housing as a commodity and want to keep being able to skyrocket rents to pad their bottom line. I imagine they're against it. We'll see if they come out against it. But other than that, we haven't heard any opposition. But when we're going out into the street for the last 3 months talking to renters, there's not a renter that says, oh, yeah, I'm totally safe and comfortable. I can afford my rent. I'm not worried about moving. I'm good. Don't need this.
Right. Now, speaking of that, so we know initiatives it's a process with that. And I see you just started. How many signatures do you need by when for this to go up on the ballot?
Yeah, so we need about 27,000 valid signatures, but we're going to try to get 35,000 by the end of June. That way we can get it on the November ballot. The city council could sit on it and get it onto a later ballot, but don't worry, we'll be there to push them to put it on the November ballot.
And now on the ballot, is it just by, 51% or something like that? So if
Yep, just by 51%. So that's what we're going to be
yes
starting
or no?
for. Yes or no? Should we create the Seattle social housing developer to build deeply affordable housing?
Right. I wanted to take a few minutes here before I let you go, and we have your colleague Ty come out. You mentioned something about sweeps, and what's happening with the sweeps. We haven't been out on a lot of different sweeps. Maybe you can kind of update our viewing audience as to what is going on with homeless encampments and sweeps, at least how you guys seen it there in your organization.
Yeah, I can do that. I mean, I would definitely bring Ty into that too, because Ty's out there
great.
doing like that mutual aid and on the ground support a lot more than I am. But I mean, the Durkin administration was hell. They moved away from these 72-hour sweeps into just immediate sweeps under this broad cloak of if you're an obstruction or a public safety hazard, you can be swept immediately, which you could argue everything under that broad of a category. So we just see immediate sweeps out there now. The Harrell administration has taken that up. They're doing it rapidly. We know that President Biden is going to be here on Friday. So is there a correlation between all of the sweeps and President Biden being here? Anyways, it's a cruel policy. It causes so much harm and trauma, and we need to be like stopping that pipeline into homelessness as we're talking about. And besides rental assistance, which we still desperately need to be funding in this interim, we don't have a plan to stop homelessness from actually happening. And I agree with Charles Mudede. Homelessness is a cultural phenomenon.
Yeah. And well, you know, one of the things that I've been keeping an eye on, and at the last press conference that Mayor Harrell had with the DEA, the U.S. Attorney, the Superior Court attorney, and the municipal, the city attorney. And one of the things that I brought up was that I see the all-stars here of law enforcement, and they said that, you know, one of their big things is cutting off the fentanyl pipeline into Seattle. So you've got these at every level, the U.S. attorney there, the DEA there, everything. And my question was, where's the all-stars of social services? Where's the all-star of repair? These are our community members. And when I say community, I speak larger than just Black folk. In our municipality, these are community members in the city of Seattle. These are community members in King County. A lot of people who are unhoused, and that goes through a wide range that you know much better than me. From the people who are just they tell you they're just couch surfing, but they really don't have a home, right? And you just don't catch on. Hey, can I crash with you for a few days? All the way to what people see. And of course, this is, as a city, we act on what we can see, and that's the unhoused there on the street. And I'm always wondering, what is our plan for our impacted community members who, if you talk, you know, we're right here on First. I talk to a lot of people walking back and forth. Sometimes they just see me and come up to me, and sometimes I talk to them, and people don't want to be in that state. And I just know that we can't leave our community members in an affected state. We have to figure it out. I don't know the answers, but you know, I know that we can't have one without the other.
You're exactly right, and that's what policymakers don't connect. And with this new administration coming in, and Ann Davison as the city attorney, I mean, we are just going back to like 90s policing ideas and crime and punishment, which we know doesn't work, and these ideas that you can punish away poverty and you can criminalize away poverty, which is just not founded out anywhere in any research anywhere. So that's another reason we also wanted to inject like this hope and vision into like Seattle right now, because right now it's just about being on the defense. And I mean, mutual aid workers are out there so much, like bending over backwards just to like make sure that our unhoused neighbors have like their needs met or help moving, because the city doesn't provide help in moving people from one corner of a street to another. So we wanted to inject like hope and vision and like some community aspect as well into this discussion, because if you don't stop the pipeline into homelessness, this is going to continue happening. Rent is going to keep going up. Homelessness is going to keep happening. We don't have behavioral health support. So homelessness is going to keep happening. Like, we can't keep focusing on the after effects of our policies. We have to get to that root cause. And that's what like our coalition is all about, and what we keep forcing into like the media narrative. And that's like we're so thankful for Converge Media for also doing that. Like, we need more of those discussions, we want instant gratification. We want short-term solutions. I was on Cairo this morning. They're like, so is this going to solve all the tents being outside? And I said, no, it's not going to solve that until we as a community come together and see that we all need to exist together and can coexist, and we fund everything that humans need in order to be successful.
Right. And also people should keep in mind too that Seattle, I know that there's more that we can be doing, but y'all need the other 38 or 39 municipalities in King County. Let's remember, a lot of the people who are homeless on the streets of Seattle, these are your sons. These are your daughters. This is people who from Bellevue and Renton and Federal Way and all over King County. Seattle is the place where they can end up and get some services, because a lot of y'all in your cities have turned your back on people who are unhoused. And so they end up here in the city of Seattle where they can get some semblance of services that are here. And so when you talk about solving the problems on the tents, it's important that the other municipalities in King County, you realize this is your community members that are down here too. Walk these streets downtown and ask how many people are you from Seattle. Did you grow up in Seattle? Did you go to high school in Seattle? Did you whatever? It's a lot of people who aren't from here. And so we keep in mind that Seattle gets an influx from around the region. You know, I could talk to you on. And I know we're definitely going to have you back during this campaign. Any last words or thoughts before we go to break?
No, just like folks get involved. I know Ty will come on soon, but look at howsourneighbors.org or look up how's with just the letter R neighbors on Twitter and social media. But appreciate the commentary you and Trey have already had about social housing. We need answers now, and this is something that we can put forward and implement in the city of Seattle. And this is a nationally growing movement. It's happening in Hawaii, and it's happening in California right now as well. So just thanks for having us on, and looking forward to talking more soon.
All right. Good stuff. We're going to take a quick break right now. When we come back, voila, Ty Reed coming to the Morning Update Show with Trey Holiday. We'll be right back.
When the pandemic hit, it did affect me. As a barber, I had my own personal reasons why I didn't get vaccinated. At the time, I didn't check the actual source. I thought the vaccine was developed too fast, but I was talking to a doctor and he was telling me more about the vaccine and what it can do to protect us and our family. I wanted to get back to that once was, right? I do feel safe knowing that I am vaccinated. I just hope what I'm saying is reaching into people's heads to know that this is the best decision for all of us.
Swing your blue notes, that's a mobby pass. More chops than karate class. I can hear the blues when the shotty blast. The whole block blowing horns, that's that Jackson jazz. Swing your blue notes, that's a mobby pass. More chops than karate class. I can hear the blues when the shotty blast. The whole block blowing horns, that's that Jackson jazz.
I told you guys, man, we coming with it, man. We nonstop.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Morning Update Show. I'm your co-host, Trey Holiday, and joining me right now on the set is Ty Reed. Ty, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited about this conversation already.
Well, you know, it really has already set a great foundation. I think Tiffani and Omari were really just describing things that have been echoed for so many decades in terms of, I know, particularly in Black organizing. You know, we talk about a lot of folks who have been saying solutions are necessary right now. Tell us about your work on this initiative.
Yeah, Tiffani gave some background on what we've been working on. My side of things has been closer to trying to find short-term solutions to the sweeps pandemic, or I don't know how to reference it. The kind of sweeps that we've been experiencing that have increased under the new administration of Bruce Harrell. So I started working on the campaign as co-chair with Tiffani and this time last year. And since then, I've kind of been bringing people in together and talking to more community folks. When we first started this, Tiffani kind of just asked me what do you want to do about this Compassion Seattle thing? And I thought it was a great opportunity to bring in people who aren't typically at the table when you talk about initiatives and fighting for something in Seattle, you know, not just the biggest unions or established organizations. I was we need social workers, we need mutual aid workers, we need people who actually live outside, because if we fight this in an institutionalized way, we're really not going to get the answers that we want. We'll probably end up like conceding on a lot of issues. So I think it was really important that when we started, it was like from a basis of like we want to really reflect the needs of marginalized folks and people who are most impacted. And so like, I see my role as making sure that we stick to that and make sure that we like rooted in those values. And we've had a lot of folks come in since then, and they are super about that life, right? They want to make sure that this initiative doesn't get washed down, that we're asking for really big things because we need really big things, and that people are willing to push for something even if it seems kind of far-fetched.
Yeah, I really love this approach because I think it's so necessary right now. I talk often about bold approaches. It's just the zeitgeist we're in. The times we're in cannot allow for us to have a, stair-stepped kind of approach anymore. It's like we understand the end result of what's needed. We need to get there quickly. And so when you talk about these sweeps, I mean, as Omari said, we've been kind of seeing this take shape. I know that, we've been seeing it in terms of some of the ways that Mayor Harrell's administration has gone about this. I've been saying from the gate that if you're not partnering with social services, if you're not partnering with community-rooted solutions, when you think about clearing up the streets, what are we really doing here? Are we just moving up, this issue from one side of the street to another? What are some of the real details that you're experiencing out there by really paying close attention to these sweeps?
I was at a sweep yesterday, right? A few weeks back or a couple weeks ago, we had partnered with SIDMA, which is the CID mutual aid group, and they had reached out to Stop the Sweeps, a group I'm also a part of, about needing support for a big sweep that was going to happen on Jackson between 8th and 10th, and then another one on King between 8th and 10th. And so these are kind of like the heart of the CID, and these folks in SIDMA have been serving folks out there for a really long time, and I think their sweep efforts often get unnoticed and not talked about. And so we were able to stop the King Street sweep, or at least delay it, because we made a big stink about them not having language services. They did not have proper notice in Vietnamese and Chinese, which is what a lot of folks out there speak. And so yesterday was kind of the continuation of that sweep, and we saw it play out. And what I saw was the same exact people. That's what you'll notice about sweeps, and they ironically feel like community building events, because I do see the same folks, and it's the same service workers, it's the same police, it's the same parks department, it's the same people getting swept. So it almost feels like the worst party in the world. But what I've noticed is that you are sweeping people from one spot to the next. If I see someone at sweeps 3 or 4 times, can Bruce Harrell say he's solving anything by actually making them happen? Can anybody say they're solving anything? That you've moved someone from 3rd to 4th to Pioneer Square to all over, and that they haven't gotten housing in all of those times, they've just moved from place to place. I think like that has been like really devastating to people who have been able to create communities. I personally have had some hard times like dealing with the community that I do mutual aid out being swept last Friday. And those folks have been there for 3 years. So these weren't people who had tenuous connections or you can accuse of not having any kind of community bonds. They had created a camp that made sense for them with rules that applied, and they kicked people out when they weren't respectful of those. And that just got destroyed. And none of those people are housed. None of those people are living in an apartment. I think maybe one person got a tiny home, but I haven't been able to check, so that might not actually be true. I think that to say that Durkin's sweeps were devastating and to see how Bruce Harrell has transformed them into something much, much worse. I don't think that what we're building up is a lot of violence and mixing communities that are being swept back and forth, and we're just preparing for a lot of like harm to be done on the streets because people are just being shuffled, but they're not actually going inside.
You really mentioned such a valid point here. One of the elders in our community, Dr. Mims, has been talking to many community members about the idea that our unhoused now, it's a culture. What we're forgetting is to do something that's culturally responsive for them, because you do have people, exactly what you said there, Ty, that create community in these camps, that are creating rules, a sense of structure, a sense of value system that they're going to follow. These are things that are not at all talked about in the major scale. And ultimately, it's unfortunate because we have to also atone to the fact that these are people that are also smart out there. They have their way of of how they are going to live and how they're surviving. And then they have their own ideas of, okay, how do we collectively come together to thrive? So I just love that your experience has been able to bring that to light, because it's something, it's not just in theory, this is real, this is in practice. And I think when we talk about approaches, we really have to think about the need for multidisciplinary approaches. We're talking about mutual aid, we're talking about social services. I know that the King County Regional Homelessness Authority, right? They're like, some of these sweeps, they're not even being informed of. So how is there really a multifaceted approach to these sweeps that allows for those who are getting paid good dollars to do that work to be at the forefront of it as well? I also want to bring in the Lived Experience Coalition. We know that that is the center of many unhoused voices that are coming together to say, this is what our lived experience is. If you're not centering us, what are you really doing? Ty, I think that the social housing concept is one of those metrics. Tell us about why you actually understand this as a reasonable and much needed solution to what you're seeing and experiencing out there.
Yeah, I think that Tiffany did a good job of covering all like the financial reasons. And I'm going to be honest, I don't know a lot of legal stuff, but I think for me, what stands out about being in super important is like what we're discussing now is like having some autonomy over your living space, right? Like, the irony of living outside is that you have more rights than a tenant who lives in a building, right?
Yeah.
Like, you can be evicted at any time, but you know, if a sweep doesn't happen, you get to decide who's allowed to be there, what kind of structures, how loud people can be, and things like that. And you know, as someone who pays whose rent is $18.75 in Seattle for a 1-bedroom, I wonder how long I'll be able to live here. And I wonder what housing I will actually be able to get as I'm pushed into, as I have fewer and fewer options for who I just have to accept to be my landlord. And one of the things about social housing that's super important to me is that community-based decision. You get to decide who your maintenance people are, what the outside of your building looks like. If you have daycare in your building, if you have a workout room, like renters should be able to make those decisions. And I don't know of any situation other than those few rare housing co-ops where you can do that, where you can say, this is how I want to live and build an actual community. And so I think for me, that's what's super important about social housing. And another thing is, I was a case manager for a year and I had to quit that because that was a hard job. But one of the things I noticed is that, you know, even if you have $5,000 in your pocket, you can't get housing because you have a past eviction, because you have anything on your record that says that you were a bad tenant, because you have a conviction, because you have a low credit score, because you don't understand the application process, or because you have a voucher and there's no way to put that you have a voucher on that application. And so with social housing, we are able to get rid of all or most of those barriers that make it hard for Black and brown people, especially in my experience, to even get into housing, even if they do have the funds. And so I think, you know, what's really important to me is I would like to see some renter, some tenant control over the way that we live. And I just don't see that even in the nonprofit affordable housing models. You know, you still have to go through that application processing that's actually longer than a regular housing, like market rate housing application, because you've got to prove your income and you've got to show how many kids you got and all these different things. And hopefully just make it easier to get into housing and stay in housing. Because what I'll tell a lot of people is, a lot of folks don't need transitional housing outside. They don't need supportive housing. They could get off the streets and into an apartment without any support very easily. It's just none of those apartments exist. You know, they're starting at $900, $1,000 for a studio, and that's just not reasonable for people who do need a leg up in terms of price outside of like the support and stuff.
You know, you really make valid points here, Ty. And I'll say, as somebody who's worked in community housing, I think we actually have an opportunity to understand the barriers that are still put in place for renters, and the idea of this kind of intrusive application process. It's like barrier sold to us so that we understand why you qualify for one of these amazing units. And we really have to be even better in terms of the approach and the intentionality. How are we leading with compassion? This is why the Compassion Seattle was such a misnomer, because a lot of folks looked at that and said, where's the real compassion here, right? And so I'm glad that that was kind of a nucleus for you guys to be like, oh no, we need to jump in front of this. We need to do something. But it's really interesting because we understand that, you know, there's a wide variety of housing needs out here. When we talk about housing housing diversity. I think that social housing really answers a concept of what you're describing right now. And as Tiffani said, these models exist globally and across the country in terms of, renter approved appropriations for their housing. The renters are the ones and the tenants are the ones that are the decision makers. And there's also opportunities for the tenants to become owners, shared owners in the space. These are things that really open up the market around housing diversity that are totally necessary for a city such as Seattle and a county such as King County, where we see the high cost of living is now doing exactly the opposite in terms of caring for the citizens. So I really appreciate you guys' work on this, because you guys are really setting a tone for what we need next. I mean, what are some of the things that you think people can be doing to support what you guys have going on?
Well, I would say first off, please sign up to gather signatures, right? Like, we don't have a bunch of money like Compassion Seattle did. I think that they gathered like twice as many signatures that they needed. I mean, a lot of them were invalid, so that didn't matter, but we need volunteer power. We need community power, because I think aside from the actual gains of social housing, we need to be building a movement. The people who work on this campaign today hopefully build the PDA, and they work for the PDA, and they're on the board, and they get to, break ground on the first building that we actually start, or we buy another building and they get to manage it, or they get to live in it. So the more people who are involved while we're trying to get this started, I think the stronger the infrastructure will be when it's actually up and we've made that win. So it doesn't just fall to government to make sure it happens and that just goes away. So definitely sign up to gather signatures at any of our tabling events at houseourneighbors.org. You can also follow us on Twitter at house_neighbors. And I would just say, follow us, follow what we're doing. We're going to have a panel tomorrow, actually, that you can sign up for. That I will be moderating, and it's going to be talking about funding. So a lot of it's going to be, what is social housing? How is it funding? How is it funded? How can people benefit from this in this country? And so they're going to go really in depth. So if you have any of those questions, or you're interested in finding out more so that you can tell people why they should be interested, I think Seattle relies too heavily on these long explanations. People want to know all those in the weed details. How are you going to pay for it down to the cent? And if you're interested in that, I think follow us, attend our panels, share our content, gather signatures with us, and definitely make sure that we get what we need to make it to the ballot in November.
This is a great initiative. And before I let you go, one thing you said there that I think really resonates with me is the PDA being owned and operated really by the people who are a part of this effort, which I think sometimes some folks think about the history of PDAs and they go, oh man, no, that's another quasi-governmental agency that is over this. That's another mayoral appointed court that then gets to decide how this public development authority is going to be utilized. And we've seen that over the course of time, how it doesn't really impact the people that it's supposed to impact. So I think you guys' approach in terms of making sure that the people that are on this journey right now are also going to be the ones that can have those opportunities to really govern the PDA is a breath of fresh air to me, because just because it seems like a good thing, you always have to follow it through and make sure the right people at the heart of it. Ty, I so appreciate you being here with us today. Thank you so much for being here and sharing this important initiative. We'll be following you guys along the way. Can't wait to have y'all back.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I've immensely enjoyed this. And also check us out tomorrow at that panel that I'll be moderating.
Absolutely. Wow. Great effort indeed, you guys. And, we went a little over time because this was a necessary discussion. So glad you guys were, hopefully you guys got informed and learned more. I certainly did. I'm going to follow this up and close out with, after this short break. Stay tuned. You're watching the Morning Update Show.
When the pandemic hit, it did affect me. As a barber, I had my own personal reasons why I didn't get vaccinated. At the time, I didn't check the actual source. I thought the vaccine was developed too fast, but I was talking to a doctor and he was telling me more about the vaccine and what it can do to protect us and our family. I wanted to get back to that once was, right? I do feel safe knowing that I am vaccinated. I just hope what I'm saying is reaching into people's heads to know that this is the best decision for all of us.
That's a mobby pass. More chops than karate class. I can hear the blues when the shotty blast. The whole block blowing horns, that's that Jackson jazz. Swinging blue notes, that's a mobby pass. More chops than karate class. I can hear the blues when the shotty blast. The whole block blowing horns, that's that Jackson jazz.
I told you guys, man, we coming with it, man. We nonstop.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Morning Update Show. I'm your co-host, Trey Holiday. And joining me back on the set is our guy, Big O. Man, Big O, great show today.
Yeah, no, great conversation. And it's important that we use the platform here to be able to amplify as many voices that are out there trying to find solutions here. You know what I'm saying? And for me, I think that a lot of people they discount just the person who's maybe in the middle. And I'm not saying like I'm a centrist on things, but you get the people who are like, man, sweep them all. And then the people who are like, oh, everybody should maybe get everything. And I'm just like, man, because I'm a business owner on First Avenue, and when there's people oftentimes sleeping right there in front of our front door, I mean, we're not like the people next door who that's their main, entrance and everything else. It's like, no, somebody who's operating a business, they don't want somebody sleeping in their door and obstructing customers coming in. At the same time, though, it's like, where is this brother going?
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? It's like, they don't have to be void of each other. Taking action and having compassion for our community members doesn't have to be, two separate things. And that's why it's like, on the real, like, I mean, this is something that we deal with here every day. Just like, early this morning, 5-6 blocks from here, was another shooting, 23-year-old. Killed right over there on King Street. So like we're not in some high rise somewhere and it's this and that. And I walk past 3rd and Pike and Pine every day, coming here and going home. And I just know that like we can't forget Seattle, unfortunately, is a city that has a humanity and a compassion switch. You know what I'm saying? It's kind of a la carte who we're going to care about and who we're not going to care about. And just real quick, an example was Anais Valencia.
Mm-hmm.
When Anais was murdered up there in Nam, and the initial police report said that the shooter and the victim might have known each other.
Mm-hmm.
No one cared. It wasn't until we came out and said, yo, this was a random act of violence. Nobody, you know what I'm saying? They didn't know each other. All of a sudden, Seattle found this compassion and this humanity. How can we do a GoFundMe? How can we do this? How can we do? And I saw right there, I was like, ooh, this is a cold compassion switch that Seattle got, my friend. It switches on and off. But like for us to solve this problem for real, you know what I'm saying? We got to keep our community members in our heart and in our intentions. And just pushing stuff down the street, that don't solve nothing. How can we really, man, get all the way upstream, clearly in the long term? And how can we, in the best way, help our community members today?
This is why I really appreciated this discussion, because so much of it resonates with solutions that are happening on the ground that need to be scaled up. And when I say on the ground, I mean community-based organizations, institutions, community leaders, individuals. There's a lot of folks that have been involved in crafting solutions, and they're doing it at a micro level. Oftentimes it's this one program, this one particular development project, this one particular this one, building of an institution here. But really the collective whole of all of that goes back to how community's been resonating and saying what we need to be doing is treating the whole person. It can't be a one-off solution around, hey, let's just clean up this street today. You just heard it right there from Ty, who's like, I'm seeing the exact same people in the next sweep. So are you really doing anything? And for us, when we talk about this, we also have to recognize that this is like taxpayer money that goes into a lot of these efforts. So how are we being able to be more intentional to ensure that those investments have long-term solutions, not just for cleaning up the streets, but for making sure that people are being cared for? You're right about the compassion switch, man.
I'll say this, is that being visible and your visibility making you undesirable and people finding a way to push you out by all means, or people was visible.
Mm-hmm.
They was undesirable and been pushed out from 90% in the Central District to less than 10. So let's not separate ourselves from this issue too far.
Absolutely.
Because we see being visible and undesirable what happened in our community. So I definitely don't know all the answers. And, if anybody knows me, man, I want to listen and learn from everybody, you know what I'm saying? But I'll never move from a place, without putting humanity first, and we need to find real solutions. There's a lot of people out there, man, they hurting, man. They hurting, On that note, Trey Holiday, I'm sorry we kept you overtime, but I think it's well worth the discussion. Any last words before we get out of here?
So needed. And, as always, I'm so inspired to be on this side of the screen and be having such a phenomenal guest that constantly lend to that inspiration of seeing myself as a part of the solution. If I can do nothing more than inspire you all out there to take advantage of these opportunities when we're bringing guests on here and they're sharing how they are seeing themselves as a part of the solution. We keep showing you guys a wide range of ways that you can get yourself out there, get engaged, get involved. Let's change things for the better. See yourself as part of the solution.
Yeah, for sure. And I think it's time to probably reach back out to Mayor Harrell's office and see where our all-stars of social services are. You know what I'm saying? He asked for some time. It's been a while now since that press conference, so let's see how that's coming along. I think we got a few programming notes for tonight. Well, tonight I mentioned as Seattle News, Views, and Brews. That's at 7:00. That's coming up, and then tomorrow. But this will be real interesting here tomorrow. Well, yeah, we've got Mike Davis tomorrow from South Seattle Emerald. We've also got another guest here. There he is. Yeah. So Nathan is joining us. And they want what would be the first Black hospice in Washington State. And so the licenses are up right now for hospice. And when we talk about death with dignity in our community, I remember even just some of those brief conversations with Ashley McGirt. She used to work in the hospice realm as a therapist there. And, these guys are wanting to culturally relevant. There's something to be said about death with dignity. So there'll be a good discussion. And tomorrow, man, on that, I hope you guys enjoyed the show here today. You know what I'm saying? And appreciate all the support out there from our community and community members. Day like today, I'm glad that we're leaving you with Shayna Shepherd and a little bit of hope. On that note, I want to remind you, go forward in your purpose, go forward in your humanity. And until tomorrow at 11 a.m., Peace.
What do I see through a lens of fear? 1,000 little steps to go. What do I fear after all these years? Lord knows I don't even know. I've been running on the edge of a sundial, sleeping in the shadow. I've been begging you to see me, then hiding beyond the unreachable. Looking out left on a right-hand turn, just trying to make a deal. A lazy shoes and love is a love that turn. That's the kind of food that heals. I've been searching for the end of an era, waiting to be ready. The world is bigger than a moment. Be steady, that's how you can feel it's real. But I feel naked in my new clothes, 'cause I I know no one is a shadow. I know